Welcome to the Critical Minds on Union Television. I am Onyinye Eslofo, and today we're going to be discussing health safety in the workplace. I have with me a medical practitioner, an SDG advocate, and she is also the CEO of Sustainable World Impact Program. She is Sarah Olayinka Oladipo. Hello, Sarah.
Hello.
Thank you for joining me today in the studio.
Thank you for inviting me.
Great. We're going to be discussing health and safety in the workplace and in the society by extension. And I am really excited about this topic because I know your work is a proof of change within the society, and it's also something that people in corporate organizations and business people would learn from. If you have information that business people and corporate organizations will learn from and implement them, not just learning, but also learning and implementing so they can be more cautious or become more aware of health and safety of themselves, their company, and their staff at large. We'll be going on a short break now, and after this break, we'll be delving deep into the topic of health safety in the workplace. This is Union Television. Stay with us. Welcome back to the Critical Minds on Union Television. I am Onyinye Eslofo, and we're still discussing health safety in the workplace. And with me is Sarah Oladipo. Hi, Sarah.
Hello. I'm glad to be here.
I'm glad to have you with me today. Health is really an important topic that concerns everybody. So it could be at the workplace, and this also this part of personal health. Considering health, and we're also considering safety. So I think let's talk about health because you need to be healthy to stay safe.
Sure.
What do you think is the major concern about health? I wouldn't say a definition of health, but what do you think is a major health concern in our society today?
That's a very important question. Because health is something all-encompassing, right? And we can talk about health as regards immunity. We can talk about health as regards infectious diseases. We can talk about health as regards transmittable illnesses. We can talk about health as regards chronic illnesses. But now we're talking about safety and health. And it's very key in our society, especially in countries like Nigeria, where we have a little too little of health prevention hazards or health hazard preventions. And it's just a very key topic to talk about, yes.
Okay. So we're going to be talking first about health and immunity because if people want to stay safe, they should know what they are staying safe from. And besides what can possibly happen in the company or in an organization or even in the house. So what is this thing that people should know? So we're talking about health and illness.
Yes.
What do you think? And
that's a very important question because before you can pay attention to your health, you have to be aware of the hazards, aware of the illnesses, whatnot, in the workplace, health sectors, and whatnot. And when we talk about immunity, it's just about bolstering your immunity against these common illnesses. Now, are we talking about work hazards that would be taking precautions to ensure that these hazards do not happen? Are we talking about health place, infectious diseases, whatnot? Talking about eating healthy, staying healthy, exercising to ensure that whatever comes at you, your body can actually adequately fight it. Yes, just all about that.
So within the workplace or an organization, do you think that certain things members of staff or directors and managers should pay attention to as it concerns work staff health or general health?
That's a very, very good question. That's a great question. So now the way it works is that the way I like to think about is health in 3 tiers. So there's the government, there are the individuals too. That would involve the employers and the employees. So the employers would probably involve the supervisors also. So the governments have a role to play as regards ensuring that they're safe precautions, so laws that will guide safety at workplace, which is very, very important. And we have the employers who would put into place awareness strategies, implementation strategies, reinforcement strategies to inform these people about the healthcare, about the employees, about hazards in the workplace. And we have the employees themselves who also have to take personal precautions and know the limitations of, for instance, in the healthcare, we call them personal protective equipment, PPEs. Know the limitations of this equipment prevention is always better than cure, and it's always best to stay healthy and safe.
So what are examples of policies that you think should be implemented, and how do the right people get to hear about these policies?
Okay, so now the amazing thing about this safety at workplace is that we have, people who work outdoors, we have people who work indoors, right? And outdoor hazards happen to be a lot. Would have the heat wave. If you notice, we had a heat wave around February, and I think Punch newspaper also published something about that, and it affects us largely because it affects the quality of work. Exhaustion sets into place. So imagine you're working outdoors, you're working with instruments, for instance, builders, construction managers, and even people, farmers, whatnot. And this heat is just, getting at you. You lose your body water because of the exhaustion. You're less productive, and because of that, you're not necessarily paying attention to the things you're doing. Now, and all those kind of things always happen such that you can very easily be involved in a hazard, an accident because of these things. We have, the climate change happening a lot, and we have people that work indoors. There are several different things that could happen when you're indoors, right? So imagine you work with machineries. For instance, we have a solar plant in Louth and a power plant in Louth where they work with large machineries. Imagine you're just working, you're not paying attention, and then your hand gets into something, electrical hazards, all those kind of things. So it's very important that policies are implemented to ensure that these people are putting the right things in place. So do we have, for instance, this is a danger zone, do not touch, be careful, pay attention, wear this equipment before you go into there. Everyone must pay attention and know these policies. Even before you employ a person, you say, okay, these are our safety precautions, learn it by heart, know it. And also the managers, the employers have to put implementation strategies to reinforce this information. So you see signs constantly telling you, this is a hazard, this is a dangerous ground, be careful, do not cross this red line. In case of surgeries in hospitals, do not cross this red line, be careful, use this when you're going in here. So those things are just important things we should put into place, yes.
And you mentioned, you gave an example about probably someone working and the person uses his hand to touch something that means there's supposed to be some kind of protection.
Precisely.
So why do you think that people would want to just work like that without these protections? Is it because they're not available to them, or?
Okay, that's a great question. Now, it's amazing that we have awareness, right? But it's also another thing to implement these things. So we have equipment to protect you from this, but are the people supposed to using it? And even worse so, are the people supposed to provide it for you, providing it for you? Now, you can also talk about the cost implications of that. And a lot of people that are in business try to pay attention to costs. Are we really spending money on the right things? Are we really spending money on the appropriate things? Because they're trying to ensure that all funds are located at the right places. They need to pay more attention to safety in the workplace, because prevention, like I said earlier, is always better than cure. Can you imagine? Because these people working at your workplace have families that they hope to go back to, and personally they would always want to prevent. If they know the dangers in this place, they would always want to prevent such hazards and whatnot. So it's left to you to provide this protective equipment for them and educate them on these things. Yes.
So you talked about 3 tiers, the government.
Yes.
So can we now know how managers and institutions have a role to play as regards safety and health in the workplace?
Okay. So I would like to talk about it as regards awareness, reinforcements, and implementation strategies. So awareness, you conduct training events, for instance, for your employees rather. So it's one thing to assume that they know that these equipment are dangerous, right? But it's not always the case. Some people are actually not aware of how dangerous it could be, how life-threatening some things could be. So it's in your best interest to educate them, have programs, have training events, just to let them know about these things. That's the first thing they can do. Second thing is actually to also reinforce, meaning that after you educate them appropriately, you want to reinforce that information. I talked about the signs earlier. Just place signs to remind them, constantly telling them. It's just like, okay, you have a speaker or whatnot that can speak to the entire company. Pay attention, always stay safe. That little subconscious reinforcement just reminds them that, oh, I have to make sure I do the right things at work today. I have to make sure I do the right things at work today. That's best. And the implementation, make sure that they're implementing these things properly. They're using the strategies appropriately. That's all. Yeah.
So we had talked about people knowing about what they should do, and you said reinforcement. That's the part that affects people,
Mm-hmm.
so they get to know what that these things are things you should be careful about, things you shouldn't do, and things you should be aware of. However, do you think there's need for people to know the extent? If I don't know how far it can hurt, there are some persons that can call some things calculated risk because they don't know the extent
Yeah.
to which it can go or its effect. So in a case like that, what do you think?
Okay, so I think it's a dicey situation, right? It's one thing to try to educate people, and it's another thing to scare people into action. You do not
Okay.
want to scare your workers into action. It doesn't work because it's like a negative feedback mechanism. So you want to educate them appropriately. You want to show them the extent to it, but you do not want to scare them into thinking, oh, you could die if you do this, right? We know that death is a very big danger, but scaring them, it's not always the route to take. That's why I was talking about reinforcements, reward, very important. Okay, so they see examples of things that could happen if things go wrong, how bad things could get. But at the same time, you don't want to show them pictures or whatnot of dead people because of this. Nah, always a way to go about it, a wise way to go about it. Show them, reinforce them, reward them for doing the right things. Or this has been the most careful employee of the season, zero hazard, this and this. You could also say that, well, can you really completely eliminate hazards? Not exactly, but you can reduce them to the barest minimum so you can save lives, save properties, and even much more.
Welcome back to the Critical Minds on Union Television. I am Onyinye Eslofo, and we're still discussing health and safety in the workspace. And Sarah is still with us. We have a lot to tell you, and I'm sure this conversation has been interesting. But then you need to hear why you need to be cautious about yourself, your health, and your safety in the workplace, and most importantly, everywhere you are, because you need you to be able to work effectively. Hi, Sarah.
Hi.
Using you as an example, do you think that the members of staff would pay attention to health when they have practical examples or serious examples of what the dangers are?
Yes, I still stand by my words earlier when I mentioned the thing about fear. So there's a difference between instigating a sense of urgency and instigating fear. So now let me use the example of corporal punishments, for instance. So you want to beat a child to instigate fear in them. Instigating a sense of urgency is different. You can express the importance, give instances, give facts and figures, explain, and especially if a person went to maybe to a tertiary institution to study whatever the person is working as, maybe a construction engineer, the person already learnt all of those basics in school. So instigating fear doesn't really change much. It might also have a negative effect. So urgency is better than fear. So know this, it's important to do this. Okay, this has happened before, then the facts and figures. Look at the news, everything is happening, this is happening, accidents are a lot. But do you want the person afraid? And you know how crippling fear could be. If you do a lot of public speaking like I do, you can stand in front of a stage and fear might actually make you unable to get your words out. So fear is not always in your best interest, because imagine a person is working with a dangerous equipment, the person is just thinking, oh my God, I could die right now. Then how would the person actually function effectively? So understanding the urgency, understanding the limitations and how bad things can get does not necessarily equate to fear, in my opinion.
Yeah, we're not talking about instilling fear in people, because the example is actually trying to illustrate the extent to which not paying attention, or how dangerous. That's what we're talking about. How dangerous. You said people can know that something is dangerous, but they wouldn't know the extent to which it is dangerous. So when we're saying, like, put on your seatbelt, there could be an accident, it does not mean you're in a car, you must have an accident. Do you understand?
Yes, I do.
So if you're saying that's a sense of urgency, how do you now think this urgency should be communicated if they are to remove the fact that somebody could have an accident and die, or it's going to make the person afraid? How do you think this urgency should be communicated?
Putting it that way, I do agree with you. So explain the extent of how bad things could get is very important. Yes, I do agree with you.
Okay, so you who is watching us, just know that you need to pay attention to your health. You don't even have to wait to know the extent to which fire will burn you. Don't go near it. So if there are health indications, if there are safety measures you should take, don't ask too much questions. Implementing them will not harm you. And then we're talking about health and then wellness. There are people who are working well in the organization, and over time their productivity is no longer meeting the mark.
Mm.
They are looking okay. How do you know that there is a health challenge?
Mm. Okay, that's very important because, like I said earlier, there are different phases to healthcare, and some people would actually talk about mental health inclusive of that. And some have chronic illnesses that they're not aware of, right? And some are even aware of it. So it's very important that a person prioritizes their health and prioritizes communicating that information to their employer, for instance. And I understand in Nigeria and many other places, as much as we all have a right to good working environments and health care and whatnot, you're afraid that this particular illness might cause you to, lose your job because your employer fears the reduction in productivity. But having a chronic illness, for instance, is not a death sentence. It's not a death sentence. You just have to understand your limitations as a person and how to effectively broach that limitations. Okay, this at this point in time, I do my best work. At this point in time, I need to take a step back. So it's just implementing that appropriately and communicating that to your employer.
So when you say at this time I do my best work and at this time I need to step back, step back, what would you be doing when you're stepping back?
Okay. So it's very important that everyone understands themselves. And I think as you grow older, you learn to understand yourself better. For instance, I work best in the mornings, right? And because of that, I tend to cluster a lot of my important work morning time. And at this particular time, I will decide, oh, I need to take a 30 minutes break before I get back into work. And there's something they call Pomodoro, and a lot of people do it a lot of times. You work intense focus for 25 minutes, rest for 5 minutes, whatnot. Is understanding yourself better. And taking a step back does not mean, oh, you want to take a 3 month leave after working for 1 week. No, that's not what I mean. It's just understanding how best to maximize the use of your energy so that your productivity level remains high, top notch, and peaks at a point and never dwindles. Yes.
Yeah, so people that have health challenges, you talked about communication, and there are people that don't even know that they have health challenge because there are no physical signs. They're not just productive, or and it's coming off to them as I'm not in the mood.
True.
So how do they communicate when they are in this phase?
Individuals actually have to pay attention to their health. That's something I would capitalize on. Normally you're supposed to have health checks every 6 months thereabouts. So check on your health. Just do a general checkup. Have a hospital you're subscribed to where you do a general checkup so that you know when these things are coming into place. And one important thing about healthcare is that when you catch it early, you have a better chance of survival, right? And better chance of treatment options working well. So it's very important that you also pay attention to your health. You also ensure that you go on checkups. There's several of those free medical outreaches that non-profit organizations go on. Attend some of them just for the fun of it, just to learn about your health status. And it helps you understand yourself better and understand, okay, why do I feel tired every time? Why do I feel this kind of way? Is it just I'm not in the mood? Am I just not in the right mental state today? Or is there something actually wrong somewhere? So just paying attention to yourself.
The main thing is paying attention to yourself
and
so that you're able to communicate whatever it is. Well, then it's really great hearing about the work you're doing at SWIP and how it is affecting the society. Rules on safety are important. They are not just there as theory, they should be practical. It's what everybody needs. And today is International Day for Health and Safety at Work. And you need to be healthy to work in a safe place. You need to be healthy to be able to be productive, and your safety should be your priority. This brings us to the end of this program on the Critical Minds. It's still Union Television, and we have more programs for you. So follow us across all our social media platforms. And yes, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Until I see you again, keep watching Union Television. And as always, I am Onyinye Eslofo.